Hi, my name is Carrot. I've always been an adventurer at heart. I've been all sorts of places, from the frozen taiga to the burning nether, and I've seen some amazing things. On my travels, I've had some pretty wild encounters, and I've rescued dozens of animals. Last year, my favorite uncle passed away and left me a literal ton of emeralds. So, I bought myself a zoo, and I made a home for all my rescued friends. These are their stories. The one about the bonobo. Here at Carrot Zoo, our animal friends have incredible stories, but one story that sticks out as a real gem is the one when we saved Prima from pillager poachers. I was part of a team of researchers and scientists that was sent to monitor and assist a group of bonobos that lived in a remote jungle temple. We'd set up a base near the river where we had a small clinic and a lab and another portal, just in case. We also had a local guide, a villager who had lived in the area his whole life and often watched the bonobos in the wild just for fun. He knew all their favorite places. His name was impossible to pronounce, so we just called him Koji, which was the best we could do. One brutally hot day, Koji came running into our camp, breathless and in a panic. I heard screaming in the jungle, he said. The pillager poachers know where the apes live. We have to hurry. And without waiting, he dashed into the jungle wielding an axe. As I grabbed my emergency go bag and crossbow, I hoped Koji didn't get himself killed. There weren't a lot of local people who understood the significance of bonobos. The world needed more men like him. I dashed out of the camp and into the jungle in the direction of the bonobos' temple, my colleagues hot on my trail. I quickly caught up with Koji. He was fit, but no one can outrun a carrot on a mission. I tackled him to the ground and pinned him down with one knee between the shoulder blades. "Stop!" I whispered urgently. "You're gonna get yourself killed running out here like that. You know they have crossbows. How many can you take down with an axe before one of their bolts pierces your skull?" "We need to hurry," he spat back. "We need to stay alive," I replied, standing up slowly. Koji pushed himself to the sitting position. "They weren't screaming because they were being invited to tea," he said hotly as he stood. "We can hurry without getting ourselves killed in the process," I replied over my shoulder as I near silently pushed my way through the brush. We set a brisk pace and moved as quietly as we could through the dense undergrowth. After about 40 minutes of hiking, we reached the edge of the cliff that looked over the broad basin in which the temple sat. The sun, perched just a few inches above the horizon, warmed the impending night and bathed the hollow in an unearthly glow. If not for the distressed screams of the bonobos below, it might have been a peaceful sight. We hurried down the narrow trail cut into the side of the steep cliff. It was barely wide enough to stand foot by foot and littered with unstable piles of gravel. We moved cautiously, fully exposed to the hostile environment below. Soon, we found ourselves under the dense canopy of trees once more. We raced through the jungle at breakneck speed, spurred by the terrified shrieking of the apes. As we entered the clearing, we were met with a horrifying sight. Over a dozen bonobos were lying on the ground, apparently dead, pools of blood around their still warm bodies. Most of them riddled with crossbow bolts. A couple of pillager poachers were there dead as well, torn to shreds by the powerful teeth of protective mother apes in their dying efforts to protect their young. So many lost. Most of the poachers had seemingly escaped. We stood there in horror and sadness as the shrieking apes continued their mournful song from within the jungle, filling the world with a sound of sorrow. "Better see if there are any survivors here," I said as I bent over the still form of a female bonobo. We made our way through the 17 bodies lying in the clearing and found 2 males and a female who were still alive but in critical condition. Among the bodies, 4 small metal cage traps were lying scattered, one half crushed. Inside each of them was a single infant bonobo, terrified and traumatized, but alive. As my colleagues dealt with the details involving the injured and deceased, Koji and I checked inside the temple. It was dark and musty, with a powerful aroma of ape. The jungle had gone quiet when the bonobos finally stopped their incessant shrieking, but even so, inside the temple, the silence felt profound. I lifted my torch above my head, and as my eyes adjusted, sorrow shredded my heart. Curled in the corner at the far end of the entrance hall was a female bonobo, a crossbow bolt protruding from her spine, a tiny, big-eyed baby clinging to her chest. Tears streamed from her soulful brown eyes as she shivered in terror, trapped and paralyzed by her injury. "I won't hurt you," I said, easing towards her. "I want to help you." The young female clutched her baby against her chest, whimpering in agony as the crossbow bolt moved with her. "I won't take your baby," I whispered. tears now rolling down my face as I silently begged all that was good in the universe to let her be okay. She seemed to relax as if she knew that I really was going to help her, and I approached her cautiously. She might trust me, but I knew better than to trust her. She was a wild animal, after all. I quickly assessed her condition and raced back to the temple entrance to shout instructions at the others. The sun was now below the edge of the cliff, and darkness was beginning to settle over the basin. We needed to get the apes out of there as quickly and safely as we could. As I turned back into the temple, intent on finding where Koji had gone, I heard the scuff of boot on stone, and thinking it was Koji, stepped into the darkness. Suddenly, light exploded behind my eyes, and I found myself kneeling on the ground, pain throbbing from a huge knot on the back of my head. I hardly had time to think that we'd been closer to the poachers than I thought when shouting outside alerted me to more drama. I stood on wobbly legs, raised my near-dead torch high enough to make sure the young female was still safe in the corner, and crept toward the doorway. I could hear my colleagues yelling. The thwack and snap of crossbows firing across the clearing filled the air. The poachers had returned for the last of their prey, but this time no one was taken by surprise. I dove to the ground and scuttled back into the temple for cover. Laying on my stomach, mostly hidden by darkness, I loaded my crossbow and aimed at the nearest pillager I could see. I pulled the trigger and watched the bolt connect. Pillager out. I reloaded and took aim again, when all of a sudden a great noise arose from behind my colleagues, and I watched in awe as the most incredible thing unfolded before my eyes. 30 bonobos, some old, some young, some with babies clinging to their backs, charged through the brush and trees, a loud chorus of shrieks and howls filling the air once again. I watched with a mix of horror and awe as the pillagers, taken completely by surprise, attempted to run away only to be thwarted by another group of apes behind them. In seconds, the only thing we could see was a throbbing, shrieking mass of black-furred bodies jostling violently. Then, as suddenly as it started, it was over. The bonobos drifted away into the jungle. The pillager poachers lay in a disgusting heap of unidentifiable pulp, shredded at the hands and teeth of the very beasts they wished to dominate. I had never seen bonobos act so violently. I didn't even know they could, but I understood their rage. Their home had been invaded, their families destroyed, their friends murdered, their babies stolen. What they did was not violence, it was justice. We took all the injured apes to a rehab center. The little female in the temple survived, but was paralyzed for life and was never able to use her legs again. We call her Hope, and she's in a special care center for apes with disabilities. We named her baby Prima, and up until about 6 months ago, Prima stayed with her mom at the care center. But Prima isn't a baby anymore, and when she had her own baby, Hope didn't handle it too well. So now Prima lives here with her own adorable little daughter. I don't think she remembers the day we met, but that's a day I'll never forget.